And good morning, and welcome to the John Telford Detroit Show with Dr. John Telford and your co-host for today, Dr. Sunanda Samatharkarado. Dr. John Telford has been a long called a lightning rod for controversy. He retired in 1991 as Deputy Superintendent of Schools in 98% white Rochester, Michigan, where skinheads riddled his house with midnight gunfire for hiring black administrators. After retiring, he became an executive director in the Detroit Public Schools, where he clashed with inept top administrators. He served most recently as the superintendent of the Madison School District and was fired for recruiting hundreds of Detroit students against the wishes of white residents. Undefeated at 400 meters in Europe as a world-ranked sprinter, Dr. Telford coached world champions and authored a noted book on the quarter mile, The Longest Dash. In 1978, he was inducted into the Wayne State University Athletic Hall of Fame. He has written newspaper columns, hosted radio shows, and directed human rights agencies. A former director of the innovative and controversial Division of Basic Education in Macomb County Community College and a published poet, he also taught at Wayne State and Oakland universities. Wayne State University named Dr. Telford as Distinguished Alumnus of the Year in 2001 for his civil rights activism. A Detroit high school track has been named in his honor. Throughout the years, his students have consistently pronounced him a great teacher, and current poet in residence for DPS, our 86-year-old Dr. Telford is still the most dangerous activist in Detroit.
Thank you, Dr. Sunanda Corrado. Did we get the music? I don't know if we got it or not. But
my son called me in the middle of it. That's
oh,
why
did
I
he?
shut off.
Oh, okay. Well,
Sorry,
and Dr. Sunanda Corrado was a PhD from Columbia University, and she was my regular co-host. Now she's just going to be doing it at the end of every month because she's got so many other activities that has taken her away, and she's got a couple of young boys that she's raising. But my name is Detroit. I'm a blue-collar town. Blue salt melts my mid-March snow. Speedy cars and sprinters spring from me. I father fierce fighters and funky music. In a Motown moment, I can spit the blues right back in a bureaucrat's eye. Have you never seen blue salt? No complex chemistry here, only the old color of a new sky. And there's a new sky dawning on Detroit today because we are going to be interviewing Shri Tanadar, State Representative Shri Tanadar, former gubernatorial candidate Shri Tanadar, who actually carried Detroit when he was in the primary running against Gretchen Whitmer. We are going to interview Shri Tanadar today. He is in the studio. And you know, citywide, countywide, statewide, nationwide, and worldwide, here in this country, we've got to make sure that we vote straight Democratic up and down the ticket, because you regardless of whatever party you voted for in the past, I don't care if you voted Republican. I mean, there is no longer a Republican Party. It's a Retrumplican Party. So if you want to save our republic, save our democracy, and do all those good things that I've been talking about time and time again, you've got to vote straight Democratic. Remember what Benjamin Franklin said. We have a republic if we can keep it. He said that way back in 1787.
And this is especially important for our democracy because we're talking about the 13th Congressional District, for which our state rep for District 3, who's never missed a day in office so far, is running. And the 13th Congressional District is a historic district and a cornerstone for civil rights and democracy federally and locally.
That's right.
And so was the 14th. It's become, the 14th has become the 13th. I was on the executive board of the 14th, and Carol Weaver says she's going to try to get me on for the 13th. But the important thing now is that we are interviewing Shri Tanadar. And Shri, welcome to the John Telford Detroit Show on WJZZ Internet Television.
John, thank you. Thank you, and I'm honored, Sunanda, to be here with both of you.
Well, it's an honor to have you on, and it's a delight to have you on. And tell us, what inspired you? I mean, what inspired you to run for Congress?
Well, COVID hit Detroit disproportionately. The black and brown community was affected, and it exposed the healthcare disparities.
Yes.
Yeah.
A nation as rich as the United States, John, we are the only developed nation that doesn't take care of its people's health care.
Developed, yeah, the only
And
developed
then you
nation.
look
You're
at-
absolutely right.
And then you look
Yeah.
at Detroit. We've got Wayne State University School of Medicine. We've got Hutzel Hospital. We got the DMC. How did all of our people fall through these cracks? We are a medical university like spotlight.
Exactly. And what I want to do is separate employment and healthcare coverage. Regardless of a person's employment status, he or she should get. Regardless of a person's financial status, the person should get health care because I believe health care is a fundamental human right.
Absolutely.
And we must cover with currently 26 million Americans are without health care. And nobody should be afraid that a major healthcare emergency would put them in bankruptcy.
That's right.
A nation as rich as ours, we got to be compassionate and we got to care about people's health. And I want to work for Medicare for all, a single payer healthcare system that will allow us to negotiate prescription drug prices. We pay higher prices for prescription medicine than anywhere else in the world. I'm a pharmaceutical scientist.
Yes.
I have been involved in developing new medicine, and I understand, but the gouging,
Yes.
the pharmaceutical companies have jacked up the prices, and it is hurting ordinary people.
Tom Blakely would love to hear you say that. He was a kid that I coached at Denby High School many years ago. He was one of our champions, and an attorney. And he spent his entire career winning cases against the pharmaceutical industry.
So
That's Tom
Absolutely.
Blakely.
So what would be something that you could do in Congress? Because what we found with what Hillary did is that when she litigated pharmaceuticals, they actually kept the prices up after the litigation, saying that the litigation cost them this much money. So what do we do to get the pharmaceuticals to understand our needs?
Well, one thing is that allow Medicare to negotiate pharmaceutical prices.
And we could do that with the one payee system, right? We can't do that with multiple
Well, we
payees.
currently can do that.
Yeah.
We currently can do that, and we should do that, because Medicare for all or a single payer healthcare is going to take some time to get there. But in the meanwhile, we should negotiate prescription drug prices, and they need to be on par. We have seen seniors driving across the bridge to Canada to buy their medical
That's
supplies.
right.
Yeah.
That's right.
And we don't need to do that. We
Yeah.
should be able to get the same pricing here as Canada is paying for, and
Amen.
Canadians are paying.
And we're seeing this future for medical tourism, especially after the Roe v. Wade decision came down, because all these states have these different opinions.
Yes.
So if we don't act about Medicare and Medicaid, we might end up having to go to another state just to get regular treatments.
That's right. And a woman's right has to be protected. We are going back 50 years now by what happened by the Supreme Court.
Yes.
And the Roe versus Wade, we got to codify that into the federal constitution. Health care, abortion is health care.
Yeah.
And we need to protect a woman's right.
Well, 6 members of this Supreme Court are corrupt. Let's face it, we no longer have an objective Supreme Court, which is very, very frightening.
Yeah, they lied. They lied when they were interviewed.
Yes.
They lied about Roe versus Wade
Yes,
That's
they do.
right.
to get
That's right.
on
They
this seat, and they should be impeached.
They
I
should.
really think that
They should. 6
every
of them.
one of those who lied
I agree.
under oath when they were interviewed by the U.S. Senate should be impeached.
I totally agree.
So-
I got a question though, because we were talking about the pharmaceuticals as a goal, but that's not your biggest goal, I don't think. What is your biggest goal?
Well, we need to get health care for all. We need to improve our education.
Yeah,
You know,
now you're
look,
talking my language.
I grew up in poverty.
Yes.
and abject poverty. You
Yes,
know, I
yes.
slept on the floor, I ate on the floor.
Yes.
There was times where I didn't know where my meal is going to come from.
Yes.
No running water in my home.
Yes, yes.
So I understand the hardship. People only look at me now that I have become financially successful later in my life. But I go back to my roots, and I have never forgotten, John. I have never
I
forgotten
can
my roots.
understand that.
And I remember those struggles my mother had to do to raise us, and the struggles my father has to deal with. I remember those like it happened yesterday.
You've lived it. You've lived it.
yeah.
E pluribus unum. I mean, you are the epitome of the
Yeah.
American dream.
Yeah, and the wealth disparity,
Yeah.
the income disparity, the rich and the poor, that gap continues to increase.
It's growing.
And what has made it worse, John, is the decades of racism. Decades of racism has wiped out any kind of opportunity for a black or a brown person, urban person, to be able to achieve his or her American dream. And we got to give our people the hope.
And Donald Trump has worsened it.
Yeah,
I mean,
absolutely.
ever since go ahead.
Yeah, so in the
Sunanda.
context of Detroit, part of his education, can you talk about reparation and how you think we can resolve education through reparation?
Yes, and a remedy. Look, the Indian Americans and the American Indians got their reparations. The Japanese got theirs.
Yes.
But African Americans never got their reparations.
That's right.
That's right.
And it inhibited the intergenerational wealth.
40 acres and a mule was promised.
But
never delivered.
I co-sponsored. I co-sponsored 2 bills in the Michigan House on reparation. So my bills are Racial Equity and Reparation Act. And what I'm proposing is a $1.5 billion reparation racial equity fund. Now, what this fund would do is, give out loans and grants and interest-free loans for small businesses, for entrepreneurs. So, like when we talk about minimum wage, we want to raise the minimum wage to $15 or $20 so people can have a living wage.
Yes.
And I support that. But minimum wage increase alone isn't going to create wealth in the black and brown community.
That's right.
What we need to do is home ownership.
Assets. Asset building.
Yeah, home ownership would create wealth. Business ownership would create wealth. So the reparation fund that I'm proposing in this bill would create such a fund that would allow and encourage and help people, give them the seed capital they need to start their own businesses.
And this is the work you've been doing as state representative, correct?
Yes. So I have focused on economic equity, and I have focused on education. So I sit on the appropriations committees in the State House.
Good.
So I'm on the Health and Human Services Appropriation Committee, and I am on the School Aid and Department of Education Appropriations Committee.
Good.
And the 2 years that I have been serving on this committee, we have had the biggest education budget without raising taxes.
Yes.
So we just passed a $19.6 billion education budget that brings per pupil equity, that brings money for teachers. There is a lot that is happening, and I'm so proud to be able to be a part of that education expense and budget. We have $1.2 billion now for Detroit public schools, where we can rebuild 5 different schools, repair the schools which are in bad condition. There has not been no investment in Detroit public schools for years and years.
Well, for years and years there have been divestment
Yes.
because
Exactly.
that state takeover, that whole 2-decade state takeover, when that state takeover was over, we had lost $3.6 billion.
Yes.
$3.6 billion.
Yes.
And the taxpayers are going to have to pay that back. But in terms of reparations, really what needs to happen is the state should give us back that $3.6 billion
Fiscal audit that you've been asking for.
that was stolen and misspent. And taxpayers in Detroit are going to have to pay that back. But the state created
Totally
that
agree.
mess.
So, but
Then they need to clean it
So
up, as far as I'm
Detroiters are
concerned.
anxious because of redistricting, right? Because of redistricting, now our neighbors are part of our districts, such as Inkster, Ecorse, Grosse Pointe.
Oh, that's the gerrymandering. I've never.
Well, yeah, but now that you're running for Congress and running for the 13th district, can you explain a little bit about how these other interests are part and parcel with the development of Detroit?
Oh, absolutely. And the issues are really not that different. People want to raise their families. People want a better future.
They lost their schools too, haven't
yeah,
they?
Yeah, And American dream is all about our children having a better life, more opportunities than we did.
Yes.
That's American dream, and every family wants their children to get good education. People want to raise their families in a safe environment. We see all this gun violence all across the country. We have had 250 different incidences already in this year of gun violence.
Al Jazeera said there's about 10 mass shootings a week in the United States, and there were 6 the very day of the 4th of July.
Yes. It is sickening what has been happening. And we need public safety. We need to get the illegal guns off the street. We have more guns than people in
That's
this
right.
country.
Let's pursue this conversation in 2 seconds because you're watching the John Telford Detroit Show coming to you live, streaming on Facebook, YouTube, Twitch, Twitter, and other top social media platforms. Please like, follow, share, comment, and subscribe to us in the various other programmings that we offer you here at WJZZ, the coolest TV station in the world.
Thank you, Sananda Corrado, for those commercials. And, I've got to tell you folks, because we used a different introduction this time because we did not have the introduction.
Yes.
But I am trying to sell my books. This is how I stay on this station. This is also how I stay on WCHB, AM 1340, on which I appear every Saturday morning at 9:30 for half an hour. I do a monologue on that station, and it replays every Monday evening at 6:30, that same monologue. And on that monologue, I try my best to sell my books to stay on both of my stations. This is my book, A Life on the Run, Seeking and Safeguarding Social Justice. It's my whole life story. And I recommend this book to you, and I recommend all of my other books. I've sold 7 of them, and I want to keep on doing it. So if you want to order one of my books and get a signed copy, call me at 313-460-8272. That's Dr. John Telford at 313-460-8272. And we've got Sri Tanadar in the station today. And
So Mr. Thunadar, because I abruptly kind of cut off the conversation to do this station announcement, but we were talking about gun violence, and it's been in international media. They're saying that this mass gun violence is uniquely in American culture. And I know we've passed some gun laws, and obviously it has not worked for this 4th of July. So what are your ideas and instincts about it? Because, of course, there's violence around the world. Why is it so different for us? Why do we have this mass shooting culture? What do you think Congress can do about it?
Well, there's a number of things here, but part of it is mental health, mental illness, the pandemic, post-pandemic. We have a mental health crisis.
We had it pre-pandemic.
We had it pre-pandemic.
Highest in the history.
And if you remember John Engler, who was the
Lord.
governor, he shut down.
down.
He shut down and he cut back so much of mental health services.
Yes.
Now, through my work in the State House, we were able to pass the biggest Health and Human Services budget, and I fought for additional mental health beds because I've talked with grandmas and mothers who are waiting for their children to get a psychiatric bed.
That's right.
And I have heard of stories where kids are being put into ER, waiting in
right.
the ER for an hospital bed to open up.
Yeah.
Yes.
And so we are, the governor is great. And I'm standing with the governor in putting additional resources for mental health in our state. And we are investing $650 million in building new psychiatric hospitals, both for children and for adults, creating more bed capacity. This is the more investment than has been done for last 10, 20 years. This is the first time we've been doing this.
And then how about outpatient care or helping social workers with the kind of trauma that they have to deal with? Are social workers going to get anything out of this?
Absolutely, absolutely. And, some of the funding that we got from the state for education, the schools have been able to hire 600 counselors, psychological counselors.
Need them badly.
And we need more because
We need more.
Yeah.
Because, a lot of times the mental illness manifests itself in 10-year-olds, 12-year-olds.
Yes.
And we need to have, these kids need to have access to psychological counseling at an early age. And we hear kids are waiting for weeks to get an appointment with a school counselor.
Yeah. Now here is going to be a question intersecting in maybe an unpredictable way. How do you think our literacy crisis and COVID are informing this mental health crisis? Isn't our inability to read part of our mental health crisis?
Oh, absolutely. And remember that, John, that this lawsuit that the children won from
Yes.
Pershing.
Yes.
Right,
And
right.
the state promised $94 million for literacy effort.
Yeah,
And I've been after the state government to do that. I put a bill in the Michigan House to get $94 million for the literacy program, because unless we teach our children early reading skills, math skills, we're not going to get this any better.
Yes.
Otherwise, we'll be continuously worrying about third grade reading score
Yeah.
and math abilities. I believe in early childhood education, and we need to start teaching the 3-year-olds, 4-year-olds math skills, reading skills early in their life. Then we don't have to worry about the 3rd grade math or 4th grade reading or what.
Now you're talking my language, Sri, and I've been fighting this battle for a long time for the Detroit schools, and we've got people fighting right beside me. We've got Jim here with the Quick to Learn 2 Sigma program, and Helen Moore with the Let's Read program, and also Rachel Vitti with the Beyond Basics program. I'm trying to get those 3 folks to stop criticizing each other and just all pull together for
That's
the
why
kids.
we need a
Yeah.
congressman.
I mean, this
That's right, and we're the adults. We've got to. We're the ones that are supposed to be taking care of these kids, and not squabbling among each other to see
So
who's
what do you think
knows
about
the
all these
most.
ciphers? People have been suffering inequity for so long, have so much distrust in local government, have created so many ciphers, political ciphers in the city and around.
Yes.
How do you feel that these ideas can remedy?
Well, look, there is little trust in elected officials.
Yes.
Congress has 18% approval rating. And you wonder why. Why is 18% approval rating of Congress?
Well,
And-
I can understand why, because you got 137 fascists in Congress right
Exactly.
now.
Not only that, but our political system is corrupt. If you look at the influence of special interest money,
Right.
if you look at the influence of corporations, the corporate PACs,
Yeah.
all of this money coming into politicians.
Yes.
And we need a campaign finance reform.
Yes.
Amen.
We can't have billions, millions and millions of $100 million spent in U.S. Senate races.
Yes.
Well, we can't
Or the
have
school
that
board
kind.
race.
Yeah, school board. We
Yeah.
can't.
Millions.
Yeah.
So we can't let corporations, we can't let the billionaires interfere in our democratic process.
Yes.
And really, what is happening now is unlimited money. Citizens United got to be repealed. Citizens United
Right.
allowed all this dark money,
Yes.
special
Right.
interest money into the political process. And unless we remedy that, we are not going to get lawmakers to focus on people's issues and not looking over their shoulders and see what their donors want, what the corporations want, what the pharmaceutical companies want.
Right.
They should not be controlling our agenda. People should be controlling our agenda. And that's why I'm here. I'm independent. I
Common
don't take
people, the majority of Americans.
Yes,
should be
I don't take
controlling our
special
agenda.
interest money. I don't take corporate PAC money, and they don't have control over me. My focus.
That's one of your strengths. This guy can't be bought. You know, that's-
So in that sense, let's talk about when you ran for governor. What were the changes that you wanted to see that you think that can be instilled through Congress?
Well, Medicare for all. Number one is health care. We got to cover, the basic needs. We have so many homeless. There is, in terms of veterans, there is homelessness and psychiatric issues.
yeah, particularly now with the COVID.
Yeah,
That's
the
been an-
veterans need to be given the services that they need, because these are the people who risk their lives for our nation, for our safety. So we need to really focus on the basics. 25% of the people are living at or below poverty. People are struggling. The gas prices are going up. Food prices are going up. Life has become,
Untenable.
it's very difficult and we need to address these basic issues and focus on
because
making.
you're saying it's been proven that all of these inflation prices are from corporate greed. This has
Yes.
nothing to do with production itself.
Yeah, and you look at the profits of the oil companies,
Right.
BP and Exxon.
Obscene,
They
obscene,
have
obscene.
billions of dollars.
Yeah.
They have had more profits during this time
Yes.
Yeah.
than any
COVID's
time in
made
the
more
history.
Right. Yeah, they're capitalizing on
Yeah.
on this,
Yeah.
and also, of
And-
course, the war in
Yes.
in
Yes,
in
and
the
we
Ukraine.
really, and Congress can act on it, and Congress can, hold them accountable. The pharmaceutical companies, the gas, oil companies, who are just jacking up pricing for their greed and raising their profits. So in the state house, I fought on that. Giving incentives, the corporate welfare.
Yeah.
Taking taxpayer money and giving it to big corporations
Yeah.
who are already making several $billion profit.
yeah, it's totally obscene.
They don't need they don't need government subsidies.
But then how about cities like Detroit? Well, they'll say, well, if we don't give corporations subsidies, then they won't have an incentive to come.
That is how is the game is played. You take the taxpayer money to give it to big corporations, and then the big corporations give money back to the politicians for their election. And until we need to clean up this
Yeah.
money in politics. We got to clean up this influence of corporations.
How do we do it?
We campaign finance reform. We got to go public financing of elections.
Okay.
Elections need to be financed publicly.
I agree.
We need to have controls. We can't have unlimited dark money coming into our elections, because that's corrupting our politics.
It's corrupted it all the way down to the most local levels.
Absolutely.
Even our school boards are being run by dark monies now.
Exactly. And I see that happening in the 13th district race.
Yes.
National players, Washington D.C. based organizations are pouring money into our race here in Detroit, and you wonder why. Why would these corporate PACs are putting money into our local elections, into our congressional elections? Because they want to control. They want a elected official that they can control, and now they can reap benefits.
And so why so much interest in Detroit? Why is Detroit the only UNESCO City of Design? Why are all these people interested in it when Detroit is being consistently bankrupted at the same time? What's this strength that we have that Michigan has?
Well, the people, if you look at the people of Detroit, if you look at the census data, in last 10 years, Detroit has lost 1 out of 7 people. We have lost 100,000 people have left the city of Detroit in the last 10 years. And why would that be? if this is such a great city, why are people leaving? Because our education, the quality of our education, people want their kids to be safe and get good education. The public safety, the guns on the street,
Yes.
and taxation. The city charge overtaxation by the city on Detroit residents. $600 million of overtaxation on
million?
600 million overtaxation, and the city is fighting of not giving that back to the residents. I mean that caused a lot of bankruptcies, and that caused a lot of home foreclosures.
Yeah.
So the city, the prices, water prices going up. It's becoming, unaffordable to
Yeah.
live in the city, and we start seeing gentrification. People, landlords raising rates, rents, so people can't afford to live in the city, and we are losing people. Our population, and that's why in the redistricting, Detroit could not support a single congressional district, and that's why they had to go out and get Downriver and Taylor and Romulus to put together a congressional district of 750,000 people. So this we need to really look at. I'm a scientist, and I want to look at a fundamental issues and a fundamental solution, not just a band-aid solution, but go and look what's going on. And if you look at fundamentally, is the racism, the decades of racism, the poverty, people living in poverty, opportunities denied, and then our education system. If we don't give our children the education, then their future is doomed. They're not going to have good future if we don't give them good quality education.
Oh. And you are watching the John Telford Detroit Show, coming to you live, streaming on Facebook, YouTube, Twitch, Twitter, and other top social media platforms. Please like, subscribe, share, comment, and subscribe to us and the various other shows that we present to you here on WJZZ Cool TV, black-owned station and the coolest station in the world. And we're here talking to Shri Thanadar, member Shri Thanadar, running for the 13th Congressional District.
And before we do that, before I forget, Central Michigan University has phased out its historic track and field program in favor of retaining its golf program in a budget-cutting measure, thus eliminating an opportunity for predominantly African American sprinters to attend the school on track scholarships. The golf team alumni wielded more clout. Lots of golf team alumni are businessmen who cut a lot of business deals on the golf course. Apparently, sprinter alumni don't play much golf. and Lamar Lemons, Lamar Lemons, who was the president of the Detroit School Board when I was superintendent, came to me and asked me to support him in organizing a coalition to try to get track restored at Central Michigan University. He came to me because of my former status as a world-ranked sprinter, and I was more than happy to help him. So he took me to see Keith Williams, the chair of the Black Caucus, and also a coach from Central Michigan University, Kent Baker. And we are forming that coalition. So if anyone wants to serve on that coalition, contact me again at that same number, 313-460-8272. Because while we're at it, we're also going to try to get them to restore the track program, the men's track program at Wayne State University, which produced many, many All-Americans. I wasn't the only one. And that program's been phased out since 1987. We've got to get it back. And Mayor Duggan also announced that we're getting a $12.6 million domed field house built over at Chandler Park. And I want to make sure that in that domed field house there is a 200-meter track with stands so that we can have age group track, girls and boys, high school track, DPSCD, and collegiate track, Wayne State University, particularly Wayne State University's men's track program, which we have to get restored, and also UAD, University of Detroit Mercy, they have a good track program, and post-collegiate track. We want to get it all there because we've been looking for a facility like that in the city of Detroit for about 60 or 70 years, and we don't have one yet. Okay, we are interviewing Shri Tanadar. And Shri, I got to ask Shri, what makes you stand out the most? Because there are a whole bunch of people. Remember, I had you over to the Detroit Yacht Club, and Sunanda was emceeing, and I had all those folks over there, and you had a very great presentation. Mm-hmm. But there are many, many people running for this seat.
Yeah.
What makes you stand out among them?
Well, my lifetime of experiences.
Okay.
Grew up in poverty. Education helped me pull myself out of poverty. I'm a scientist, got a bachelor's, master's, PhD in chemistry. I ran
PhD in chemistry.
I ran small businesses. I ran small businesses.
Yeah.
I created jobs. So I'm not a career politician. I have created jobs. I have run small businesses. I have done innovation. I have innovated. I have patents.
So how about second, third generation Americans who are going to say, what you've done is remarkable as part of the American dream, but you're a scientist, Member Thanadar. How could you understand what society needs?
And that comes from my lifetime of experiences, having grown up in poverty. I lost the mother of my first wife and my mother of my children. My children were 4 and 8 years old when she passed away, and I raised them as a single father until I got remarried again. But I understand what mental health and mental illness does to a family. From first hand, I know the stigma of mental health. I know the stigma of poverty, And so when I talk, it's not just talking points written by my campaign. This is how I've lived my life. And I decided to enter politics because I wanted to give back. I achieved my American dream, but American dream is not accessible to many, and we need to bring that back to our young generation, give them the hope and give them the resources for them to succeed and achieve their American dream. And that's what motivates me to come. And, entrepreneurship, business ownership, home ownership, and that's what we need to create in the urban environment.
Well, okay. I want to also ask you, who or what has been your biggest motivation?
My mother, when she was a strong woman. And we have when I'm campaigning, I meet a lot of strong women in Detroit. A woman who is the driving force, the motivation, the person that gives so much sacrifice that she makes to raise her family.
And she's a homeowner and an entrepreneur.
Homeowner, entrepreneur, motivator. And my mother is my rock. She's no more, but I learned so much from her, especially when my family was struggling. And she stood there, never giving up, just never say die, but focus on the family and the way she raised us. And while in tough times, she raised us with good values, that your word matters, what you say matters, your integrity matters, honesty matters. And that's how she raised us. And that those values of honesty and integrity and ethical behavior, they lasted a lifetime for me. And so I owe a lot of my later success to that strong woman, my mother.
So then tell us about your family, your children, your wife, your support system.
My wife is amazing. She is my biggest supporter. She's not a political person, but she really supports. And she and I spend a lot of time together on the campaign trail. And people love her. People love her because she's very giving and she's very caring, and she's a very sweet person. I have two boys. One is an entrepreneur. The other is a data scientist. So I have two young, and I have two grandchildren. My grandchildren are 3-year-old and 5-year-old. So I see the young people,
Yeah.
who want to learn, and we need to give them the reading skills, the math skills, because there is a tremendous need for them to learn.
And I know that you know about the importance of trades, especially with reaching young adults when it comes to both needs of education, right, and needs to work. So has there been a lot being going on in the state government, can there be anything done in Congress about increasing trades? They took it out of our schools. Before, you could leave
Yes.
school and you can get a job because you had a skill.
See, I think America values a 4-year degree more than trade education.
Which is the crisis.
Yeah, it should not be the case.
Correct.
We need to respect and honor and pay a tradesman as much, if not more, than a college graduate. Not
Yeah.
everybody wants to go to a 4-year college,
Yeah.
and that is perfectly all right. And used to be when a person graduates from high school, he or she already had the skills, trade skills, and we don't have that anymore. We need to really focus on trade skills. We need to give people the skills that they need to get good paying jobs.
Yeah.
And just giving corporations these incentives and money
Yeah.
isn't really the right thing to do. And I've continuously opposed that, giving money to corporations. What I feel is that money needs to be invested in people.
I think 80% of the charter schools in Detroit are corporate owned.
Yes. And we need to focus and use that money in creating skills. The more skilled workers we have, corporations will come and set up their facilities in
That's
our
right.
state.
That's
But
exactly
we don't
right.
need to bribe them with money.
That's
We need
exactly
to
right.
really create a good, skilled workforce.
We can bribe them with human capital.
Exactly. Because, I've run small businesses, and I know it's not just the tax incentives. What is important is good people. Skilled workforce is key
Right.
Yes.
to the success of a business, and that's what we need to create. And I think we still lack that.
We don't need the incentives.
We
We,
don't
need
need-
a skilled force.
We need to have a job training, electrical, plumbing, mobility, this computers, technology.
Yeah.
We need to train our young people with these skills so that they can gain good paying jobs, they can raise families. And that's what we need to. We need to really need fundamental solutions, not a band-aid, quick laws, but we need to look through this. That's why I'm a scientist. And when I look at something like this, I look at it in depth, look at the problem and look at the solutions to take care of these and solve these problems, not just, band-aid quick
Or
solutions.
give it lip service.
Yes.
Tell us one thing that you would change in the country if you could do it.
Campaign finance reform.
Okay, that's number one.
Get
Okay.
rid of
Yeah.
get rid of the corporate money, get rid of the dark
Save the
money
vote.
from our politics.
Save the vote.
It is corrupting our politicians.
Yes.
And it is taking our politicians away from focusing on people's issues because they're worried about their donors, they're worried about corporations, and we got to get this money influence in our elections.
To the
We
point
need
where you-
publicly financed elections.
No, I just wanted to reemphasize the statistic that you had brought up before, where there's only an 18% confidence
Yes.
rating in the U.S. Congress, and in England that would mean change of government.
Yes.
It'd be a no confidence vote, which we don't get to have here.
No,
That's
we,
right.
we really need to bring that integrity and focus back onto people and not on corporations. We focus more on people and not corporate profits.
And you're watching the John Telford Detroit Show, coming to you live, streaming on Facebook, YouTube, Twitch, Twitter, and other top social media platforms. Please like, follow, share, and subscribe to us and other various programming that we offer to you here at WJZZ Cool TV, the coolest station in the world. And today we have in our studio member Sri Thanadar running for the 13th Congressional District.
Thank you, Sunanda. And I also want to mention that I've been trying to get Latosha Logan, who works for the council president, Mary Sheffield, and also Ari Ruttenberg, who works for the council president, Mary Sheffield, to help Mr. Isidore Baker. Mr. Isidore Baker is a senior citizen whose credentials and all of his belongings were burnt in an apartment fire, and he's going to soup kitchens, and they're going to put him out of the place where he is, and Latosha and Ari have said that they're going to go and help him, but that's been a couple of weeks and they haven't helped him. So I'm gonna be sending. I think I'm gonna be sending this tape, which of course you're gonna get too, Shri.
Okay.
But I'm gonna be sending it to Mayor Duggan because I'm starting to think that maybe Mayor Duggan is the only person who can help senior citizen Isidore Baker. Unless maybe you want to help him too, but you're a busy guy right now. But let me ask you a couple of other things that I want to ask you. You had an opportunity to talk about your priorities that you want to accomplish. But are there any other of your largest, greatest priorities that you haven't touched upon that you want to talk about in this show today?
Well, Build Back Better. I am a big supporter of that, and I will be voting for that. The infrastructure bill that just passed, I would have voted for that. We really need to invest in America. We need to invest in our infrastructure. We need to invest in our education, and we need to protect the rights. There is an attack on our voting rights.
Yes, there is.
And I've been fighting the Republicans in the State House on protecting voting rights, and I'll continue doing that. John Lewis Voting Right Act needs to be passed and signed into law. We need to get rid of that filibuster.
Amen.
We got to get rid of that filibuster and get things done. That's what I would be fighting for. And this Supreme Court is out of control, and we need to expand the Supreme Court.
Absolutely. There's no reason why we can't do it.
I would love to see.
Are you hearing this, Mr. Biden? I mean, come on. What's holding you up? Let's expand the Supreme Court.
We need to expand the
because
Supreme
they're corrupt.
Court. Yeah.
6 of them are corrupt.
Yeah, and we need to impeach those corrupt and the justices who lied under oath. We need to get rid of those. And I would like to bring term limits on Supreme Court.
Yes. They limit everybody else.
This should not become a job for life.
I agree.
There should be a term limit. That way, because a president who appoints a Supreme Court judge that has similar views as his or hers, and then 10, 20, 30 years later, America is no longer thinking that way.
Yeah, the president's gone, but they're still there.
Yeah.
Well, hopefully the way that they had construed it, and I do see like bipartisan stuff furrowing through, the Supreme Court itself is not supposed to be. And my only thing is, okay, so we add 6 more, and then the Republicans come in and they add 6 more, and then I'm just saying, how do we
Don't worry about that. Right now, we're in crisis.
Yeah,
we are in crisis.
Well, if we're in a crisis, that's exactly what
Our
I'm saying.
republic is in trouble, and
we
we've got to.
we need to codify
These people are
Roe versus
Trumplicans.
Wade.
Yeah.
We need to codify Roe versus Wade, protect the women's rights, and we need to pass the PRO Act for workers.
No,
Yeah.
it's easy to say like where Democrats are different than Republicans, but where perhaps in your career could you say that you stood on principle on certain issues that maybe you didn't have the full support of the Democratic Party on, but your people needed?
Well, entrepreneurship, promoting entrepreneurship, small business ownership. I have been a small business owner all my life. I've been creating jobs. and economic issues.
Yeah.
The economic issues, Democratic Party must, own the economic issues, kitchen table issues, creating wealth in families,
Yes.
closing the wealth gap. That is an area that hasn't been focused on by Democrats, and I bring that to the party because of my own personal experiences of achieving the American dream, being a business owner, growing up from poverty, achieving financial success, and I want to see that happening in urban areas. And I want our children to feel, I want the young people to feel that they have hope and they can dream big and they can achieve their dreams. And that's what I want to instill in our young people.
Sheree, let me ask you this. Kind of an unusual question, or maybe not. Do you have a role model?
A lot. I don't know where to begin. I mean, I talked about my mother,
Oh yeah.
but Dr. King, I've
Yeah, that's
heard
one
his
of 'em.
speeches.
One of mine.
And what a person, and he gave his life
Yeah, he did.
That's right.
and his dream, and we still haven't really achieved his dream. That is, we are far from achieving his dream, and that ought to be the focus. Fighting for those at the bottom. So if we need to pick up the people at the bottom, that's where we need to start this. This is not top down. We need to be bottoms up. And Dr. King was a huge inspiration for me.
Amen. What has been your most important achievement?
Well, raising a family.
Yeah, that's an important achievement.
Raising a family, my two sons, my grandsons, working with my wife, and the business success was great, but I'm really excited about my public service, ability to go to Lansing, be a member, state rep, be a state rep in the Michigan House. And I have not missed a single session. I show up, John.
I believe that.
I always show up. I see my colleagues, many of them miss
Empty chairs out there.
miss
that
dozens
ain't
and
good.
dozens of. One of my competitor missed 81 votes in the
Wow,
House.
wow.
Yeah.
I miss 0 because
Okay.
I'm always there.
And that's the only time we have a voice is when you vote for us.
Because I would not go on a expense paid trip by a lobbyist and miss, and it bothers me. It bothers me when I see people voting based on what their donors want them to do. That's not how the government should work.
Yeah.
You got that right.
So I go up there, I show up, I go up there every session, every committee meeting. I'm reading the bills, and when I'm reading the bills and voting, I'm saying, how is this going to work for Detroit and my constituents? I'm thinking about my constituents when I'm making a vote in the Michigan House.
What's your best advice to anyone for achieving their goals? Well, what would you say to someone who wants to succeed in life?
The thing is, struggles and failures, but not give up. Just never give up. Keep your focus. Be prepared and achieve your goal. Don't keep your eyes on your goal. Don't get discouraged. Don't give up. Have confidence in yourself. Self-confidence is critical.
So member
Amen.
Thanadar, how can people get more involved in your campaign, your website, your information?
Yeah, my website is simple. It's shriforcongress.com. Shri is just SHRI. So Shri for Congress, you can write to us to info@shriforcongress.com.
Got it. And let me say this. This is a poem that I wrote. I originally called it "The Turd That Hasn't Flushed Yet," but the actual title of the poem is "Uncivil Warfare," and I wrote it on the 6th of January, that historic day when the Capitol building was invaded. On this evil and fatal occasion of the Capitol building invasion, the traitor Trump's collusion demands his execution. God yet hasn't pushed the lever on the traitor Trump forever. And when he does, we can only hope that the lever is that of the gas chamber. But we know that's not going to happen. So let's at least see this sucker in federal prison for the rest of his natural life.
And campaign finance reform.
And campaign finance reform.
Amen.
Amen. Amen. And we've been
And Medicare and Medicaid.
and we've been interviewing. Let me say that right. We have been interviewing Sri Tanadar, who is running for Congress in the 13th Congressional District. And this is a self-made man who's got a lot to do and a lot to say for the common American.
And you've been watching The John Telford Show, coming to you live, streaming on Facebook, YouTube, Twitch, Twitter, and other top media platforms. Please tune in to us next week, Wednesday at 10 a.m. And please feel free to like, share, comment, and subscribe to us. And thank you for watching WJZZ Cool TV, coolest station in the world.